26. Alrighty, thank you for being so patient with us for our quick break. And so our next item up tonight is going to be our consent agenda. That's gonna be, oh, sorry, I lied to you. It's gonna be 11C, and it's gonna be our transportation facility feasibility study.
I can speak to that if you'd like, Chair.
I would like to say, I'm sorry, I was looking at my agenda before I added that, I would have waited on that. I'm sorry, ladies, I didn't know.
The older you get, the more you have to do.
I'm seeing that now, I apologize, ladies, I was looking at my pre-updated agenda.
So, speaking to the transportation feasibility study, the chairmasters, Sheila and myself, attended a Zoom meeting with, state transportation. I'll just leave it at that because it's got an acronym I don't remember. IMD. So, they're talking about the potential for a new transportation base and grant money. So we were learning, we were educating on that a little more on this, study. And the feasibility study, if you want to start that process, costs $30,000. And, the county would pay $30,000 for a study, which would open us into the grant, application process. So in order to get the grant money, you gotta have the study. The study costs the county $30,000. The study would take, we said if they fast paced it, it'd probably be by spring, we would have a needs assessment for the current place, telling, why we need a new one. And then it would do site selection. So, if we're looking at sites, we'd have to have some sites lined up. And then they, would prioritize what sites are best. If we were to get that, if we were to get the grant, and let's say on average for rural areas, it's been about 3 million, wouldn't you say, Sheila? And you jump in anytime you need to jump in. So if we get about 3 million, it also has a 10 to 20% match, it depends. So for $3 million, on that grant match for 10%, that's gonna be 300,000. If it's a 20%, that's 600,000. So as we look at paying that $30,000 for that study, realize that at the end of the day, if we get a new facility, you could be 630,000 out on there. We wanted to educate y'all on that study. It's something that I don't know that it's ready for a vote. I don't know that I'll say the administrative group that looks at that being Sheila, Mavis and myself, really want to think hard on that 30,000 going out for everybody. Because when you use it up, it's a 40-year deal. If we were to make things work for a little while longer, we might have a better timing to ask for that money. So there's a couple factors in there that we're wanting to pause a little bit on, but we wanted to put it out there to the board to say, we got one out there. Yes, it does have 30,000 required input, kind of pay to play. And, just wanted to put that on the board's radar. I'm not asking for a motion or anything.
I did listen to that, Zen, but I did have a question. Of course, I thought of it after the fact. So, if we were to move forward with the feasibility study, how long is that study good for?
That's a good question.
We need to ask some grant folks that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Cause I just didn't want the study to be good for like 1 year and then that kind of be wasted money. So, that was my one question that I thought of. And then the other thing that you didn't mention was that, that grant is for new construction. It is not for remodel construction if she was to apply for that.
Correct.
Okay.
And there are advantages and disadvantages to being federal building. Building a federal building is a lot harder. You have a lot more hoops to jump through, you have a lot more restrictions.
And it's a 40-year commitment.
And it's a 40-year commitment, you are where you are. If you outgrow you've outgrown in there.
40 years.
So you can't add on to that?
They're trying to make.
Not if it's a federal building.
Okay, not even if you use your own money.
No, You have federal building.
You're under a lot of it.
Yeah.
We use that grant money, we're kind of called into that grant agreement.
Yes.
And my concern is I don't think we can build a building for what the grant is gonna be, so I'm concerned that it would just be 630,000 that we're putting into it, because based on what we're building right now, I don't think we could build what Sheila needs for $3 million. I mean, I don't know what you think,
I'm
Alan,
with you
but
on that.
that's kind of my concern.
Getting the property,
And you got about-
doing the site development.
And finding site selection, I think it's gonna be a challenge.
It'd be
because
great, ladies.
we could not find, and we struggled with the sheriff's department, so I'm not sure. I mean, that grant's got to buy the land plus build the building, and I'm not sure we can find affordable land or location for that.
Well, you know, the biggest concern, if you did find the land, you need accessible water, town water and septic.
Mm.
You know, that is accessible, so
And
then you get
internet,
into a little bit again.
And not a floodplain,
Yes, that's.
not a floodplain, so that's like, that narrows your scope down quite significantly.
You know, and even if it is a locally built building or has state funding, which we have state funding in this one. That was built with FEMA monies and state monies went after the flood, but I've still been able to get federal monies to do upgrades. I get federal monies to buy equipment, so it doesn't mean that federal monies can't be involved in a small part, you know, for the grant.
Mhm.
I don't like the 40-year stipulation, that's a
That's a long
long
time,
time,
right?
yeah, it might change.
Long time, we got rid out, when we moved into this one 26 years ago, we thought we had all the room in the world and people were coming in from the state level to see us and look at how great we were. And now we're very tiny, and we got
It's
grown
like
by
100.
leaps and bounds, so.
Well, you know, they're looking at probably,
And you know, those bays over there were the big deal, everybody wanted to go see our bays or wash bay.
That's longer than most people's marriages.
And
You're best man. I said you'll be like 100.
I'll be over 100, sweetheart. I'll be 105 in
He's
6 months.
73. But he doesn't long
Never
time.
think one more. I got graduated.
We saved that 5 years.
That is, all jokes aside, that's a serious commitment.
It is.
Yeah, and I think Mavis made a good point. $3 million is not gonna build anything. You buy your land and you have your site study. And especially if you have to do any grading or anything of that, you're probably gonna spend
$7 million project.
$750,000 to $1 million on that, and that leaves you $2 million to build a building. And if we've got a 20% match, then that goes to 1.36 million, because we gotta put up 660,000. So how good a deal are we really getting? I mean, it looks good on paper, but at the end of the day, if you look at everything, yeah.
There could be better options, is all I'm saying.
Sometimes free money costs you too much.
Nothing's free.
For sure.
All right, so you're not looking for a vote for
I'm
that
not looking
tonight?
for a vote, just
I definitely
bring
want
you all
Steve
up
to
to
be here. Vote on that whenever Steve, you be here as well, so,
Mold over.
yes. So,
But we wanted to let you know what's out there, just keep you all in the loop on that, because, you know, that's what we do.
any more discussion about that topic? Item 11C. And then we'll move on to our consent agenda. I just want to be item 12A, the needs-based public school capital fund grant application. And I guess I'll start out, if you're good with that, Alan. Last week, I got a text message from Chad. It was a joint message between Chad and, he sent it to me and Brendan Pittman, school board Brendan, not Brendan. But he asked on Wednesday about 4:32 and said, could we get each of you to sign our needs-based application Friday morning for us to apply for a $62 million grant? And I said, yes, sure, do you care to send over the information so that, I can look it over? Be able to show Alan and Mavis and, finance department, and everybody, before. So that was Wednesday, I got the information late Thursday night. And so, after I got home from the candidates forum about 10, I had read the email, they sent it about 5. And so I did review, it was 10 pages, and I think, Dave, did you give everybody a copy of the packet?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I looked it over, called Brandon Pittman on the phone Thursday night, thankfully he was awake, and I said, hey, have you seen this? He had not seen it at that time. So he asked if I could forward it to him, and so I forwarded it to him. And we had both planned to meet, to maybe if we both had questions or whatnot, to discuss what all that entailed and just kind of make sure we were all on the same page. And so I did confirm that it was not, making the county liable for anything. It was just allowing them to apply for the grant. And so finance, looked at it. I think I called Mavis and just kind of, mulled it over with her, and Alan seen it. So, ultimately, went back over there, ended up signing it. After they updated their application, so I took a hard copy, and they also had sent in information, and I don't know if the spreadsheet's in there, but it was, some numbers and stuff, so I wanted to make sure that the board had all the information that I would think that they would probably need, but like I said, this is not telling us that we have to pay any money. This is just allowing them to apply for the grant, but for the board's disclosure, there is a 5% match. So Brandon and I had talked about that on Thursday night. And so we brought that to everybody's attention so that everybody was on the same page about there being a 5% match. And so, I did ask if that would be coming out of their sales tax, again, if that was coming out of their sales tax money, where would, their payment for their technology be coming from? If they were to get this grant, and so that is some questions that I told them that they kind of needed to just be talking about so that their board and our board are all on the same page, come budget time in April. So, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer it. Or if Alan has anything else to add to that.
I got a question.
Yes,
So they get the grant for 64 million.
62, and the reason,
Yeah, 62.
so the reason it would be 62 is because it would be updating the high school, Greenlee, and Googe.
Okay, my question is. That's when the 5% match comes in, which is a little over $3 million.
Yes.
Okay. Now, and I think you pointed out, how's this gonna be paid for? Would that come out of general fund from Mitchell County government? Or would they have enough money, maybe in sales tax or lottery
Well,
to pay that match? Or could
But
they
they
use
might-
lottery money to do that?
they can probably use their lottery drop that they get every year, which is just like 100 and some thousand a year. But what would happen is, if they get this, then you've got to sit down and do a serious time schedule. This indicates they would hope to start by July 1st, but I'm hearing that probably would not,
Of this year?
July 1st.
2025.
Yeah.
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 But I'm thinking they realize that probably wouldn't happen that soon. They get about $1 million a year in sales tax that we're holding. Right now, they've got $538,000 today. They're getting ready to have to spend a little bit of that to finish out the high school or the middle school project. We are waiting on the final invoice. We got the final invoices today from Bannerway, but we're waiting on the final invoice for Code. So they may have to go into that, just a tiny bit. I think probably it'll be 10,000 or less that we have to use to finish out that project. So it's a matter of timing it out. In other words, if this is gonna be a 2-year project or a 3-year project, they get about $1 million a year, so they would have 3 million. But like Harley says, they're also making their technology payment out of there. So they may have to look at other sources to make that technology payment.
How much is their portion of the technology payments? 180,000 a year, is that right?
No, it's more than that. If the whole payment's close to $500,000.
It's 430s.
Well, we pay a
Yeah.
portion of it, right?
We,
we do the one.
have paid a portion of it in the past, yes.
We pay the 1-to-1, I'm gonna get those confused.
That is the one-to-one, that's what I'm talking about. What we call it. One-to-one. But those are things that'll we'll need to sit down with them and work out a. And the other thing is, if they sell to other two schools, that's 1.5 million, hopefully they would reserve that and hold that to go against this too. That might be a plan they have. I mean, that's up to them, they're gonna have to figure out.
They would be responsible for
If I understood that correctly, school sales with unrestricted money, they could put it and use it however they wanted to.
I think so.
And that's what we heard at the meeting. So,
I think
Harris
that's
said that.
correct.
that's correct.
That hopefully they would use it with capital money.
non-recurring expenses. Well,
Right, exactly.
we're having a lot of discussion on this consent agenda.
Discussion, hey.
Well, you gotta remember, all this yeah, right, this
For
is
the
just the
application.
application.
Well, now I have a question. If we pass this, are we
You're not-
responsible for 3% match?
No,
No, okay,
No.
all right.
I wouldn't have signed it.
They get to
You've not
play ball free
accepted
of
it.
charge, no
You're gonna-
30,000.
We're just saying they can apply, but we can
That is
reject the
correct.
money.
And so, yes,
Okay.
Yes, you're not required to accept the grant if it happens.
Right, there'll have to be further discussion.
Okay.
This is
this
the
was just
initial-
allowing them to apply. So,
Just to see if they can get it.
Right.
All right, that's reasonable.
It's just information.
That's right.
informational purposes. So, but I did just want to present all of that so that there was, the board had all of the same information at the same time. So, Deidre or Alan, if you'll just catch Steve up on it.
I'll talk to them on the phone about that.
So. But yes, for future conversations, there will definitely need to be, if they get the grant, then. Much further discussions amongst whoever's on both boards. So. But we will need a motion to approve the consent agenda tonight.
So moved, provided Mitchell County, Board of Commissioners, General Fund is not responsible for the match.
I'm present.
All in favor? Motion carries. All right, so our next item up tonight is going to be our finance officer's report, so maybe this.
Transportation.
Oh my gosh, sorry, Sheila, I'm so sorry.
That's under the
I forgot
consent
you.
I'm
agenda.
getting complex here.
That's funny,
That's the second thing under the consent agenda.
sorry. It's twice tonight, I'm sorry.
I know, my sister giving me a complex.
So you really approve
All right.
it, but you might want to.
So we'll just pull it out and just do a second, we did just approve the consent agenda, but we'll specifically. Put a motion for the transportation on the. consent.
Yeah, you have to do that resolution. that
Yes.
You signed, so.
So, do you have any discussion that you would like to present tonight?
Basically, we just need that thing moving to keep everything moving with
This
transportation.
is their budget for 25-26 years. She has to present her budget request to the state a whole year in advance, so.
So moved, the consent agenda is turned into items for discussion. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, and thank you.
Just want to make sure you understand.
All right. All in favor, Jeff, you good?
I'm good, I'm good.
All right, sorry,
If you're
Sheila,
good
I
with being
apologize
consent
2
agenda,
times.
I know.
We're not gonna throw you under the bus.
All right, Mavis, I'm gonna tell you to come on up.
Okay, what I'm gonna, go over briefly with you, just because, the TDA audit has been completed, submitted, and Misty Watson, our auditor, and the TDA auditor came today to present theirs, and as you recall, this is also gonna be in our audit, because it is a component unit for us as well, but I wanted to just quickly give you this and go over their audit results. And of course, they had no findings. It was a good audit, clean. Bustin wanted to hit you with some highlights. Their general fund for the TDA increased by $154,000. And then you can see their revenues from the first year were about 176,000, and this year it went to 217,000. And that's going to grow because of course, this year we're in right now, we're gonna have the 6% occupancy tax instead of 3%. But then if you go on over to the next page, one thing that you'll see is their available fund balance has grown to $258,000. But I put my notes on there for you to see too. You have to remember that a portion of that is their 1/3 capital hold. So even though this money's not spelled out and restricted in the audit, it is restricted funds that they can't spend for everyday expenditures, because we have the 2/3, 1/3 rule with them.
So, like this, real quick, while you're on that topic of 2/3, 1/3, can you update the board a little bit about, what Misty said that the TDA board would be able to do as far as like projects or stuff that she's seen in other counties? Cause that's kind of where the TDA board, they've not been touching it, because they just make sure that whatever project is something that is allowable in that 1/3 pot.
Well, some of the things she talked about was most trails, parks, playgrounds, anything that's public use. I think that's a key word with that. It's their capital, it must.
It has to be something reasonably related to tourism and things that would draw tourists to Mitchell County. So, for example, if you have a bike park that's been done as a destination for those that want to do mountain biking or hiking trails as potential infrastructure. I've seen boat and canoe ramps, river inputs be done as those kind of infrastructure related kind of things. So,
Trout stream restoration and that.
I mean, arguably trout stream restoration as well. There's a lot of discretion given to the TDA board as to what constitutes something that would enable and draw tourism into the area. So that has to be the standard. It can't be just supplanting county funds. For example, you can't use it for the sanitation department.
Oh, yeah.
Under the argument that, well, tourists produce trash, because you have an obligation to just generally deal with that. So it needs to be something that is tourist related infrastructure. Permit folks to come and stay in the water.
Gonna pay for, I guess, help with like festivals and stuff.
Well, one idea that Kelly had, that she mentioned today was like an access, like a river access point there, throughout the county, because her and Spencer's working on a trails map or something to that effect.
Like a kayaking trail or?
Basically just like a boating access for people to get in and out of they're in Spruce Pine, and then another place,
The north end of Kentucky's pretty busy.
Like that stream from it
Yeah.
where they can do a short day trip maybe.
cause I think Spencer's got a new festival, I don't know what it's about yet, but he hasn't told us. But there's a new festival that he thinks that would kind of work hand in hand with to draw tourists. So,
And I do think too, the first year they didn't really look at a lot of possibilities, because you need to grow that fund a little bit. That first year, their revenues were pretty minimal, so. Now they are starting to feel like they've got $129,000, so they've they've got enough capital to, start looking at some small projects. So I'm sure that's gonna be on their agenda moving forward.
Mhm.
But, just thought I'd give you this and let you know where they are and that their audit is complete. Most auditors try to do these smaller audits first, get them out of the way. She's probably, about 60 to 70% complete with hours. She said she'll now pick hours back up and try to finish. For us, it's a little bit tougher because we do ARs and APs of receivables and payables all the way through August 30th, so we had to wait for all those to come in. For CDA, don't have a whole lot of that, theirs were mostly done by June 30th, so that's one reason she can get the smaller ones out of the way, but she, was here today and, actually, she spent a little bit of time with Christy and I this afternoon, trying to, answer some of our questions that we have, now that we're getting close to closing out our first gift grant or our state first grant, and it's gonna be the law enforcement center. You talked a little bit about that, what that's gonna look like, from an audit standpoint and from it's been a construction in progress, and so we've got to convert that. Another interesting topic that I've not even talked to Alan about yet that I've got to come up with is, and I hope somebody's gonna be able to help me with this. When we take Bowman, that's got to go on our books. I'm gonna have to have a market value of that building, although it was part of the trade and review, but, of course, the land was purchased and gifted years ago, so we've got to look at a value on that property. She wants us to come up with a value of the land separate from the building, because those are going to be booked on fixed assets. So even though we're not physically paying money for this, you're gonna see that come through our budget. You're gonna see it on a budget amendment when we acquire that building. So we talked a lot about a lot of technical things that are kind of new and unique, even for me, going into my 25th year, I've not really had to deal with. So she and I kind of talked about different ways of doing some of these technical things that we're getting ready to do. Another thing is what's gonna happen is when we have, law enforcement center, for example, we all knew going into this project that we're gonna be a little bit short. Even the grant plus interest, I'm still gonna be a little bit short on funding, which is gonna have to come from the general fund. And just what that looks like as far as doing a budget amendment, we're gonna have to pull some funds in from fund balance to finish that project. And we talked about the fact that, with the state gift grant, that's kind of got to stay pure. In other words, their requirements were very strict, not as strict as federal funding, but it was still strict in the fact that it had to be in a separate account. You have to use the interest for the project. You had to set a separate fund for it, and you couldn't mingle other monies with it. So you're going to see some, a future budget amendment once we figure out what the overruns are going to be on that project, have to come back into, capital into our general fund. So we're planning for what's getting ready to happen in the next 2 or 3 months. The biggest thing is I'm excited to this month finish out the $40 million lottery grant with the school. And if you get the 62 million, my services may be available for contract to manage that one, since now I am a pro at it. I have figured out the whole sales tax issues and so anyway.
So Mavis, you mentioned that the interest has to be used on that project. Did that fall in line for the school project as well? Okay,
The school project, you don't have interest with lottery money.
okay.
See, the lottery money stays with the North Carolina Department of Treasury into what's called their core banking account. That stays in its bank account. Once we send the request every month for the money we need to pay this month's bill, they transfer the money from their account into our lottery account. I have to write a check out of that account, I usually did it the same day because there's no interest on it. Moved it to air account and then I have to pay the bills out of it.
So, and I meant.
There's no interest.
I didn't, when I said school project, I meant not the
You're talking about
the
the
middle
athletic?
school. I'm talking about the auxiliary gym, that school
It is
project.
earning interest. All of those state gift funds had to be put into separate bank accounts and they
Okay.
are all interest bearing and the interest has to remain with the project.
Okay,
So that's why we have so many bank accounts right now. So I'm gonna be glad to close at least one, so.
We gotta have a separate bank account for each project.
Each
voted on
project.
time, Right.
A separate fund within our accounting system, but also a separate bank
And
account.
start an interest, if that's just the easiest way to keep up with.
Plus, that was part of the rules and regulations to getting the money as the state required
A separate.
it to be segregated, just like, yeah.
You're ready for a vacation.
You just come back from what
I'm
you-
I'm good.
You come back.
I'm getting excited about closing something out and at least getting one off of our plate, it'd be nice.
all right, any questions for Mavis? All right, thanks,
A lot of
Mavis.
work.
All right, county manager, AKA Vanna White.
Yeah, Vanna White here, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about some of the county managing report that we have going on. Well, since we touched a little bit on Bowman, I wanna talk about Bowman. We have set up a scope of work for Bowman, I sent that out back in April, and I've got High Country. You know, kind of looking at that and kind of got it on the grant radar, and we have a study through UNC School of Government that will come and present to the board their opinions on use of Bowman. That don't necessarily mean the board has to embrace them, that's just what they're kind of looking at and what their students and staff feel could be potential uses for Bowman. So I want to give everybody here a rundown on Bowman and kind of where me as county manager, not necessarily you as board, may be proposing uses for the board to approve or not. So first and foremost, one of the things we were looking at with Bowman was preserving it for community use. I know a lot of folks have a heritage locked in with Bowman. Whether you went there or you might have played sports there and you remember being out there on that court, or you might have been in that auditorium. The citizens definitely showed support to try to preserve Bowman for community use. So we are looking to keep the auditorium and have that available for community use via a facility use policy that the county attorney would help us draft. There could be for nonprofits that are doing things that are benefiting the community, definitely have a priority of use there, but private use, there will be some type of fee schedule that could be brought forth out of that. So auditorium will be there. It can seat, I think, around 400. We are maybe looking for grant money to put a sprinkler system in the gym and the auditorium. The gym is also going to be one of those things that will have Parks and Rec use because we're needing dedicated space for a lot of our events, but it also will have that dual use if the community needs that as well on occasion. So those two things will enjoy a lot of community use. And now we'll go into kind of looking at Bowman as related to how will Bowman sustain. And so we hope to have Bowman, go
That's a
ahead.
good question while you're on the gym and auditorium.
Yeah.
Has insurance give us any indicator on like what that's gonna look like if there's people using our facilities?
We don't have a quote.
So I talked to insurance about that actually, and they gave me a few things about second insured. And they said that, yes, we could do that and that it's been done by other counties and they'll give us the model. I talked to the gentleman who's over the board, Charlie, on that. Charlie and I had a conversation, I guess about May, and I have the notes from that, but it is doable to let outside folks use it. But there will be a proof of insurance required and a second insured on that form. So we'll have to draft the form to make sure everything is really set up on that to give us our liability protection.
Okay, that's good on that question then while I was thinking about it. So if we can get that sprinkled, could that gym serve as a, and I don't remember the correct term, so I apologize, but a, facility for Ian to house if there was a natural disaster, so we're.
Sure.
ESC, yes.
So, yeah, in a state of emergency, we get a lot of flexibility to use that. Now, if you were talking on a non-state of emergency, there's a lot of regulations there and bring them in. So my understanding of that, and John might even could chime in on that, is in a state of emergency situation, we can do it on a cold night as a cold shelter,
Yeah,
a little bit different.
Okay.
So you got a little bit more liability issues when you bring someone into that. So,
I would just think if there was an emergency, you've got access to the kitchen.
yeah.
Um,
So in a state of emergency, yes, there would be a lot of usage for that, and it would probably be a good go-to facility, being it's out of the floodway and floodplain, and,
mhm.
hopefully we'll have some good update characteristics.
Okay, sorry, that was just my two questions. While you're on the gym.
So we're talking about Bowman, and we'll talk about sustainability. When you're getting ready to keep a place alive, it needs to be sustained and used. So we're looking at, for the sustainability factor, bringing a lot of the county administrative, functions to Bowman, to the main hall. So, the main hall that goes down where the principal's office is towards the cafeteria, and I know Brandon and Clayton are very familiar with that. I would propose, and like I said, as I say, this is proposed, and a commission board can tweak it and move it however they see fit. But I would propose as, we go in, there would be human resources, there would be finance, there would be county manager, there would be a meeting room for, commissioners to meet with whoever they need to, and some shared office space that commissioners can use. We would also move the commission boardroom to, a bigger classroom and outfit that where it would have all the latest technology, give it an update. I'm actually looking at Clayton's old classroom for that, cause it is big, it's got 2 doors, and it's got a lot of, features that you can have to really conduct the better meeting. The cafeteria down the hall, of course, for, if there's any kind of staff development, it would accommodate all our staff. The commercial kitchen is adjacent to the cafeteria, and it would be operated by Food and Consumer Science and Ag Extension and be kept to the standards and they would provide the oversight on that. So we got FNF, which is Food and Nutrition Program, and Food and Consumer Science Program. So those two would anchor the health safety aspects down and provide training for anyone that might be using the commercial kitchen. And the commercial kitchen and the cafeteria and the building in the back by the football field would all be kind of an ag extension project. So I'm going to Tobacco Trust Fund right now, ag development, going to be talking to Golden Leaf. And so we built a budget for an ag center back there, and the field will be used behind it still for rec league, but it'll also have farm use. We'll have some livestock paddocks along the sides that won't interfere with the football field. But the field will have the shared use to where you can do a livestock show on it. You'll have some raised bed gardens along the sides of that. So, and a greenhouse, I think it will have enough room for a greenhouse on the side of that. And like I said, we're not still gonna have that field for soccer use, for football use when needed. But we're gonna give ag a little bit more usage into that, because they have not had a place. They've been in the old annex building. That is not handicap accessible, but the HVAC is a work in progress on any one day. The windows are drafty.
No cell phone service.
No cell phone service, yeah.
No hot water.
No hot water, bomb shelter. So I've got a really great need for getting ag extension over there to that complex. And of course, we have another area I'm proposing to move elections to, and that would be the area that's got the building set to its side where the playground and the children were. I went through UNC School of Government trying to bring childcare into that. But the feasibility is bearing out, we don't have any childcare providers that will take it. The example was that Hollowfield's childcare has been on the market and up for lease and everything for a long time, and they haven't had any takers. And in the 3 counties, Blue Ridge Partnership for Children got with me, and they said, it's gonna be really hard unless you you know, have someone that's ready to go through the regulations and do all that, and we don't. So we don't wanna bet all our funding, our grant funding on outfitting something when you can't get anyone there.
Let me ask you a question on that, Alan. Cause I know this had been a conversation earlier on. You know, we've got childcare up on the hill beside courthouse. I guess through Ridge and D. And there's been concern with a daycare center sitting across the street from the courthouse, and I won't go into the reasons. But, you know, I know there'd been some discussion, what, a year ago, possibly moving that off the hill down here, since we have the playground, fenced in section, sort of set up by that model. And then apparently we're having some overflow issues or storage issues, you know, in the courthouse, that we can move non-support staff or storage in the old playground area. I mean, we've had situations where we need
Somewhere.
housing for DSS, that they can go in and actually take a shower. You know, if they have to keep a kid overnight, they've got a place to keep a kid overnight, a secure place, not in the building, but it would be close by.
I think that's something that, would definitely could be a good use of that, so.
And I
If this
think
board
there was a discussion, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that, you know, one of the concerns might be insurance. But the building is not connected, it's detached from the main structure, so.
So yeah, that would be one that and that's the case, you know, where we talked about Blue Ridge Partnership saying someone new could come in, that's pretty hard, but someone existing like this group. You know, if they were to be relocated and they got their facility up to the standards that were required, it would open that building up to be having some other uses, so definitely something you could put on the radar, and that would be something you could do. Bringing an outside childcare facility was pulled off the table, but if the board saw fit to move that down there, that would be a good option for that. So, like I said, a lot of this is a work in progress. There is a need for elections, and I can't put them in the main Bowman building, because if I put a commission room and an elections room, I know I got an elections expert back here on the state board. I can't put the politicians near the Board of Elections at certain times, so that's why I said that we might put elections over in that other building if childcare didn't work out. So
What is, and you may have said it, and I just was on down for a second, the media center over there in the library, what is the game plan for that area?
that's one that I would like to get some design renditions on how it would flow with our administrative staff, but I could see some shared offices. Some group meeting areas in there, maybe a more, just laugh at me and go with it, more of a coffee shop feel into that area right there, you know? Kind of a Starbucksy looking place where you can get in there and meet and talk, and, you can have your coffee bar down there in the cafeteria. No, I'm just going here, but anyways, that was kind of some of that, a resource area, shared office. A small group meeting area, that's kind of where I was looking at that, but a lot of these have some development potential that if I'm starting to move forward, I'm gonna get into a design process, and I'm probably gonna be bringing this board in a lot, and you're gonna be walking over there, and we're gonna say, well, this architect proposes that this area be such and such, so I'm getting the main puzzle pieces in there, but the little ones are a work in progress, so, paving the Bowman, area down there's big potholes. I think one of the things that we're looking at on that is maybe trying to get pavement over there, expanding some parking out in a few areas. Getting some gravel in some areas. Improving the road to the field is part of some of that project.
Some lighting might be.
Some lighting, some field lighting.
Or some widening of that road.
Oh, widening, yes, that definitely, we was looking at that and widening that road where if you had to get a horse trailer up there, or a small truck and trailer around.
Or an ambulance in the, in event of an accident on that field, so
Yeah.
they get hurt.
That was one thing we were looking at, so. There's a lot going on with Bowman, probably phase one's gonna be really seeking some funding for this ag center, and That's one I budgeted out, spec'd out, and I've got already running in through High Country for grants is the Ag Center component. The other components, we can work with those in-house, bring up the safety standards and start going. I do have an ask out to, our legislative folks. I sent a letter out to them back in April. I had the board do a resolution that we wanted to move forward and that I had permission to look for funding. And I asked for some funding, but I think this year it's a little difficult on not knowing where we're running with that funding, but our legislators do have that in mind. We'll just see how that goes, but I asked for $1.2 million to just cover the inspections, safety and facility needs. And we did a facility needs assessment back in January. And that's where that asked, and I know with our legislators, they want a strict budget, so I had that facility needs done. So, we've got a lot going on with Bowman. And it's, probably gonna start moving when these grants start moving in, but we do have the ability to do some small stuff and get some things moving on there. We will likely, as a county, take Bowman over, those on live stream. The memorandum called for us to, the county can take possession of Bowman 60 days after the certificate of occupancy is issued for the new middle school our children start. So if we say the certificate of occupancy was issued a few days before the students started, and students started on August 19th, so October 19th would be approximately the 60 days. And we will be, I talked to Chad, school superintendent, and we're looking at maybe doing a board-on-board meeting in late October to do some deeding over and signing some stuff to get that moving. And so our county attorney is going to get with school attorney John, and we'll do some signing over on the Bowman project. So that's moving. It's a longer game because we're real early in this and we don't have ownership. So having ownership moves me a lot quicker with grants, you know, when we actually hold the bird in hand. So I can tell them, yeah, we'll be getting this in October. And they're like, well, we'll put you in the March of next year grouping for grant discussion. But I am got those moving. Other projects, like Mavis said, we're closing out this law enforcement center. We're waiting for a switch gear that's been, you know, they have a very long lead time. Should come in the next week or so. And when that switch gear comes, we're gonna start getting on the home stretch of having that inspected out, punch listed out and getting that project moving. I'm still very optimistic about end of October, it being completely done. And I do wanna see a ribbon cutting sometime if I can at the end of October, but if I have to get furniture in there and they're running right up on the end, I'd like to have it furnished too when I bring the board and the legislators and those who come along. Yes, I want them to have a nice finished look, not just empty rooms. So we'll see how that goes. If at the late end, it might be the 1st of December, but we're gonna have a ribbon cutting soon. Rec center over here, we're moving on that. The foundations have been poured and inspected. We're waiting for the prefab building to get manufactured. I think we're gonna start seeing building go up in early November. So you'll start seeing a structure come out of the ground. Then we've been doing some preliminaries as far as just getting utilities and everything lined up on that. A new playground you'll see, thanks to Sabelco and Courts have both been very generous to donate the county some playground facilities. One at the Wade Tipton field up here, and one's gonna be down here on this field as we pull in right here in the new baseball field. And before the week's end, they should be constructing a new playground over here, so that's really exciting. So you're gonna see a lot of neat stuff going on, and we got some projects coming down the pipeline that we'll be sharing with you hopefully down the road as we see how they get funded. But that's the quick version of some of our projects that we're working on.
Do you plan to have any picnic tables or any seating area down here near the playground area? That's a question somebody asked
I
me.
think there is, definitely at least a bench or two. I'm not sure about a picnic table, but at least a bench or two.
Okay,
And this-
somebody asked, and I generally didn't know.
Yeah, and then we'll have like on the baseball complex in the concessions area, And the restroom area, there's gonna be a big concrete patio that's got some area for folks to interact and eat and everything. Yeah, we'll stop there on the county manager report. I can keep you here another hour, but I think it's getting near bedtime.
So. Okay, any questions for the county manager? Hi, guys. Hi. Okay, no questions. We do have the need for a closed session tonight. And so we will need a motion to go into closed session.
So
for
moved.
general state, general statute. For general statute 143-318.11A3, and that will be for Shaw versus Mitchell County, and the second one will be Mitchell County versus Amerisource Bergen Drug Company.
And additional attorney-client matters, as may be needed.
So. In that closed session, we'll need the board, county manager, clerk.
And
For-
deputy masters
and
on
then
behalf
law
of the
enforcement.
directory for the first matter.
For the first part. So, all right, Clayton,
So,
thank you,
second.
thank you, Rick.
I'm gonna take out the bathroom break. Get you another cup of coffee.
It's a caffeine